Hey everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're heading to France,
Ooh la la.
specifically the northern Rhone Valley. You know, it's famous for those Syrah-based wines that people just rave about.
Absolutely. It's a region that really captures the imagination of wine lovers all over the world, doesn't it?
It does, and I think for a lot of people it can be a bit intimidating.
I can see that.
Like, where do you even begin with Côte-Rôtie?
Yeah, there's a lot of history there, a lot of nuance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our mission today, to break it down.
Demystify it a bit, right?
Exactly. Make it approachable without, dumbing it down.
Right. We want to give you the tools to really understand and appreciate these wines for what they are.
And we've done our homework. We've poured over the historical accounts, the terroir, the winemaking techniques.
Yeah, we've even tapped into the expertise of a top sommelier to get that insider perspective.
Exactly. So get ready for some fascinating insight.
Prepare to have your mind blown.
Okay, so first things first, let's take a trip back in time, shall we?
Let's do it.
To the roots of Côte-Rôtie, historically speaking. I mean,
Okay, so picture this. We're talking ancient Roman times,
well, way back.
way back. And there's already evidence of viticulture on these crazy steep slopes of the Rhone Valley.
Seriously, the Romans were already making wine there.
It seems, so I mean, talk about a legacy, right? A wine region with roots that stretch back millennia.
It's mind-boggling. And it wasn't just a Roman fad. It continued right through the centuries.
Oh yeah, the Middle Ages saw the monastic orders really step in.
Like the Benedictines and the Cistercians.
Exactly. They weren't just preserving the tradition, they were actively refining and developing winemaking in the region.
That's amazing. They were like the OG wine geeks.
Pretty much. And their meticulous approach to land management and, grape cultivation, it really laid the foundation for understanding the terroir.
Right, so centuries of observation and dedication shaping the very character of the wines we drink today.
It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? This connection to the past.
It is, but it wasn't always easy going for those early winemakers.
Oh, no, not at all.
Those slopes, those were a challenge, and the climate could be pretty unforgiving.
Definitely, they had to be incredibly resilient and innovative.
So what do they do? How did they adapt?
Well, the development of terracing was crucial.
You mean those stunning stepped vineyards you see in pictures?
Exactly. That's what we're talking about. It's called les terrasses, or les chaillés, locally.
And it wasn't just about aesthetics, right? It had a real practical purpose.
Oh, absolutely. It was a game changer. It allowed them to cultivate grapes on slopes that would otherwise be impossible.
So when you see those terraces, think back-breaking labor, but also ingenious adaptation.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about taming the landscape. They were also super smart about selecting the right grape varieties.
Ah, yes. Syrah, or Serene, as they call it locally.
Right. And Serene in particular, with its smaller berries, it tends to produce wines with those concentrated flavors that Côte-Rôtie is known for.
So it was about recognizing early on what thrived best in that very specific environment.
Exactly a perfect match between grape and place.
Okay, so fast forward a bit to 1940, and a pretty pivotal moment, the establishment of the Côte-Rôtie AOC.
Ah, yes, the Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée. That's a mouthful.
It is, but
Yeah.
it's super important.
Yeah.
Why? What did it do for the wines?
Well, it was all about protecting the region's identity and setting those quality standards that we rely on today.
So like a legal framework to guarantee authenticity.
Exactly. It defined everything from the geographical boundaries to the permitted grape varieties, even yield limits and winemaking practices.
So when you see that AOC seal, you know it's the real deal.
Precisely a mark of authenticity and a certain level of quality that comes with the name Côte-Rôtie.
And this leads to a really exciting period in the latter half of the 20th century, a kind of renaissance.
Oh yeah, things really started to take off.
So who are the big players in this resurgence?
Well, one name that stands out is Marcel Gougal.
Oh yeah, I've heard that name.
He's a bit of a legend. His single vineyard wines, La Mouline Landon La Turque, they became instant icons.
Really? They were that good?
They were game changers. They really pushed the boundaries of quality and showed the world what Côte-Rôtie could achieve.
So Guigal set a new standard and inspired a whole generation of winemakers.
Absolutely. And alongside him, there were other pivotal figures like René Rostaing, Bernard Levet, Jean-Michel Jarrin.
So a real collective effort to elevate the region.
Exactly. They were all passionate about crafting exceptional wines, and it shows.
Okay, so we've covered the history now. Let's get into what makes the land itself so unique. The terroir of Côte-Rôtie.
Terroir, that magical word.
And the name itself, roasted slope. Kind of gives you a clue, doesn't it?
It does. It paints a picture of those incredibly steep south or southeast-facing vineyards basking in the sun.
And that sun exposure is crucial, right? Especially in the northern Rhone.
Absolutely. It's all about getting those grapes perfectly ripe and developing those intense concentrated flavors.
So more sun equals riper grapes equals more complex wine.
Exactly. That's the equation.
And those terraces, they're not just for show. They play a key role in water management too, right?
Oh, yeah. They provide excellent drainage, which is so important for preventing the flavors from getting diluted.
So it's about concentrating the vine's energy into producing fewer but much more flavorful berries.
Right. Quality over quantity.
Now let's zoom out a bit and talk about the broader climate and the influence of the Rhone River.
Okay, so Côte-Rôtie has this interesting mix of continental and Mediterranean influences.
How does that play out in the wines?
Well, you get those warm, dry summers, perfect for ripening, but the river helps to moderate temperatures and extend the growing season.
So it's like a natural temperature control system.
And then you have the Mistral wind, this powerful force that sweeps down from the north.
I've heard of that one. What does it do?
It helps to dry the grapes after rain, which is essential for preventing rot and disease.
So it's like nature's hairdryer, keeping those grapes healthy and happy.
Exactly. Healthy grapes, healthy wine.
Okay, so we've got the sun, the slopes, the river, the wind. Now let's talk about the soil.
Ah, yes, the foundation of it all.
And there's quite a variety, right?
Yeah.
Which adds to the complexity of the wines.
Absolutely. There are three main soil types that really shape the character of the wines.
Okay, so hit me with the first one.
Schist. It's the dominant type, a dark metamorphic rock that absorbs heat and retains water.
So it's providing warmth and moisture to the vines.
And wines grown on schist often have this distinctive minerality, think whetstone or graphite, along with firm structure and tannins.
So it's giving the wines a backbone.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, soil type number 2, what we got?
Granite found more in the Côte Blonde area.
And how does granite impact the wines?
Well, it's less nutrient-rich, so yields are lower, but the wines tend to be more elegant with silkier tannins and beautiful floral and red fruit aromas.
So if you're looking for finesse, Côte Blonde is the way to go.
Generally speaking, yes.
And the third soil type?
That's loams, which are alluvial deposits closer to the Rhone River.
Okay, what do they bring to the party?
These soils are deeper, more fertile. The wines from loams tend to be richer, fuller-bodied with ripe fruit and softer tannins.
So different expression altogether.
Exactly, showing the diversity of the terroir.
And this brings us to the famous Tale of Two Coats, right? Côte Blonde and Côte Brune.
Ah, yes, the classic division based on those soil variations.
So how do these differences play out in the wines?
Well, Côte Blonde, with its granite soils, typically produces wines that are more elegant, more finesse-driven.
With those red fruit and floral notes we talked about.
Exactly, and they often have a higher proportion of Vaillé in the blend.
Okay, and what about Côte Brune?
Côte Brune, with its schist soils, tends to produce wines that are more structured, more powerful.
With darker fruit, more tannins?
Exactly, and they often have a greater aging potential.
So blonde is about early charm. Brune is built for the long haul.
That's a good way to summarize it.
But I understand many producers blend fruit from both coats, right?
They do. It's about finding that perfect balance.
So combining the elegance of the blonde with the intensity of the Brune.
Exactly, creating a wine that's truly expressive of the entire terroir.
And those steep slopes, those play a crucial role across both coats, right?
Oh, absolutely. They ensure excellent drainage and maximize sun exposure, which is essential for phenolic development.
Those compounds that give us color, flavor, and tannin structure.
Exactly. So the geography really dictates the quality of the grapes.
All right, let's move on to the human element, the art of winemaking in Côte-Rôtie.
Okay, let's talk about how these wines come to life.
And it all starts with the grapes, Syrah or Syrah and Viognier.
The dynamic duo?
What makes them so special?
Well, Syrah, or Syrah, as it's known locally, it's a star of the show.
What are its defining characteristics?
It's perfectly suited to the climate and soils of Côte-Rôtie. It produces these small, dark berries with concentrated flavors.
And aromatically, it's just amazing black fruit, violet, pepper smoke, leather, licorice.
It's a complex and captivating grape.
And then there's Viognier, the white grape that's allowed in the blend.
Up to 20%, in fact.
So it's a minor player, but it has a big impact, right?
It does. It adds those beautiful floral aromas like peach apricot, violet orange blossom, acacia.
And it also affects the texture, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. It contributes to the wine's roundness and helps to soften those sear tannins.
So it's about creating a more harmonious balance.
Exactly. And this leads us to co-fermentation.
What exactly does that mean?
It means fermenting the Syrah and Viognier grapes together.
And why do they do that?
It has a few benefits. Firstly, it helps to integrate those aromas more seamlessly.
So the floral notes of the Viognier and the dark fruit of the Syrah become one.
Precisely. And it also helps to stabilize the color of the wine.
Interesting. Anything else?
The Viognier actually helps to soften the tannins of the Syrah during fermentation.
So it's a real team effort.
Exactly. Each grape plays its part.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit and talk about what happens in the vineyards before the grapes even reach the winery.
Okay, so picture those steep terraces.
They're pretty breathtaking.
They are, but they also make things incredibly labor-intensive.
Everything's done by hand, right?
Pretty much pruning, training, harvesting, it's all manual labor.
Wow, talk about dedication.
And pruning is typically done using the Guyot method, either simple or double.
And that's to control the vigor of the vine and manage the yield, right?
Exactly. It's all about quality over quantity.
And speaking of yield, keeping it low is crucial for concentrating those flavors.
Absolutely. The less fruit the vine produces, the more concentrated the flavors become.
And many producers are also adopting sustainable viticultural practices, right?
Oh, yeah. There's a growing awareness of the importance of environmental stewardship.
So it's about taking care of the land for future generations.
Precisely. It's a long-term vision.
Okay, so the grapes are ripe and ready. It's harvest time.
And guess what? Still all done by hand.
No way, those slopes are crazy.
They are, which makes machine harvesting pretty much impossible.
So it's a meticulous and labor-intensive process.
It is, but it also allows for that crucial first level of selection.
So they can choose only the best grapes.
Exactly. And then once the grapes reach the winery, many producers do further sorting on sorting tables.
So it's double the quality control.
Absolutely, ensuring that only the very best fruit goes into the wine.
And then we're back to that co-fermentation process.
Right where the Syrah and Viognier are fermented together.
And you mentioned it enhances the aromas and softens the tannins. Anything else?
It can also contribute to color stability in the wine.
So it's a multifaceted technique.
It is, and it's a key part of what makes Côte-Rôtie wines so special.
Okay, so fermentation is complete. What happens next?
Well, typically the wine goes into oak barrels for aging.
And what kind of oak do they use?
French oak is the norm, usually a mix of new and old barrels.
And how long do they age the wine?
Anywhere from 12 to 24 months, depending on the style and the producer.
And what does oak aging do to the wine?
It adds complexity, structure, and those lovely spice, vanilla, and toasty notes.
So it's like adding another layer of flavor.
Exactly. And some producers also practice lees aging.
What's that?
It means leaving the wine in contact with the lees, the dead yeast cells that settle at the bottom of the barrel.
Then what does it do?
It adds richness, texture, and complexity to the wine.
So it's another tool in the winemaker's arsenal. I've also heard the term whole cluster fermentation. Does that happen in Côte-Rôtie?
It does. Some producers experiment with it.
And what's the idea behind that?
Well, it means fermenting some of the grapes as whole clusters, including the stems.
And that does what?
It can add tannins, structure, and a bit of an herbaceous character to the wine.
So it's about adding complexity and nuance.
Exactly. And then there's the practice of vinifying grapes from different lieux-dits separately.
Those individual vineyard sites.
Right, to really showcase the unique character of each terroir.
So it's about highlighting the diversity of the region.
Exactly. And it makes for some fascinating comparisons.
Okay, so it's clear that the winemaker, the entomologist, plays a huge role in shaping the final wine.
Oh, absolutely. They're the conductor of the orchestra.
Making decisions at every stage, from grape selection to fermentation to oak aging.
It's a true art form.
And there's this growing trend towards using indigenous yeasts, right?
Yes, more and more producers are embracing them.
Why is that?
Well, the idea is that indigenous yeasts contribute to a more authentic expression of the terroir.
Because they're naturally present in the vineyard and winery environment.
Exactly. It's about capturing that sense of place in the wine.
Okay, so let's talk about the sensory experience. What can you expect when you open a bottle of Côte-Rôtie?
Oh, get ready for a treat.
I'm all ears.
On the nose, you'll typically get those classic Syrah aromas, black fruit like blackberry cassis plum.
And then that peppery spice.
Oh, yes, and often notes of clove, cinnamon, licorice.
And as the wine ages, things get even more interesting, right?
Absolutely. Those primary aromas develop into more complex layers. You might get dried fruit, leather, tobacco, truffle, even animal notes.
Well, that's quite a journey.
It is, and don't forget about the Viognier. Even in small amounts, it adds its own aromatic touch.
What does it bring to the mix?
Those beautiful floral notes we talked about, violet iris, orange blossom, and some ripe stone fruit like apricot and peach.
So it's adding a layer of elegance and lift.
Exactly. It's like adding a sprinkle of perfume.
Okay, so the nose is amazing. What about the palate?
Well, you'll typically get those ripe black fruit flavors,
Ah.
vibrant acidity and tannins that are present, but often quite silky.
So there's power, but also finesse.
Exactly. And you might also get those spice notes echoing from the nose and maybe even some of those floral hints.
And the finish.
The finish is usually quite long, leaving you with lingering impressions of fruit, spice, minerality, and oak.
So it's a complex and satisfying wine.
It's a wine that really engages all your senses.
Now let's revisit those two, Côtes Blonde and Brune. What are the key sensory differences you might notice?
Well, Côte Blonde wines tend to be more elegant and finesse-driven with softer tannins, red fruit notes, and more pronounced floral characteristics.
In Côte Brune.
Côte Brune wines are typically more structured and powerful with firmer tannins, darker fruit, and maybe some smoky or earthy notes.
So it's all about the terroir shaping the wine.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk food. What are some classic pairings for Côte-Rôtie?
Well, naturally, it goes beautifully with the cuisine of the Northern Rhone region itself. Like what?
Think game dishes like venison wild boar duck.
And lamb?
Oh yes, lamb roasted with herbs or grilled as chops. It's a classic pairing.
And those hearty beef stews.
Absolutely. And don't forget the charcuterie and cheeses of the region.
So it's a match made in heaven.
It is.
What about beyond the Rhone Valley? Are there other cuisines that work well with Côte-Rôtie?
Definitely, it's a versatile wine. You can pair it with noble poultry like duck confit or roasted pigeon.
And beef.
Oh yes, quality cuts of beef like filet mignon or sirloin.
What about those earthy ingredients we talked about?
Mushrooms and truffles. Those are great pairings too.
Oh.
Think risotto or pasta with truffles.
And you mentioned something about Asian cuisine.
Yes, some Asian dishes with earthy notes or umami flavors can also be surprisingly good matches.
So it's a wine that can really surprise you.
They can.
Any other unexpected pairing?
Well, for something truly unique, try pairing older vintages of Côte-Rôtie with dark chocolate desserts.
Really? That sounds interesting. It is. The wine's developed fruit and earthy notes complement the richness and bitterness of the chocolate.
Okay, I'm adding that to my list.
You should. It's a revelation.
So, what are the key principles to keep in mind when pairing food with Côte-Rôtie?
Well, firstly, aim for a balance of intensity between the wine and the food.
So you don't want one to overpower the other.
Exactly, and also look for aromatic connections, like matching the peppery notes in the wine with spices in the dish.
And texture is important too.
Absolutely. Those tannins can cut through rich, fatty dishes, while the acidity cleanses the palate.
So it's all about finding that harmony.
It is, but ultimately the best pairing is the one you enjoy the most.
That's a great point.
So don't be afraid to experiment and see what works for you.
All right, any tips for first-time tasters of Côte-Rôtie?
Okay, here are a few things to keep in mind.
I'm taking notes.
Firstly, serving temperature is key for reds, like Côte-Rôtie. Aim for around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius.
So slightly cool, but not too cold.
Exactly, and use a proper wine glass, something with a medium to large bowl, to allow those aromas to open up.
A Syrah or Rhone-style glass would be ideal.
And if you're opening a younger vintage, decant it for about 30 minutes to an hour before serving.
That helps to soften the tannins and let the aromas breathe.
Exactly. For older vintages, decant carefully just before serving to remove any sediment.
Good to know. And when you're tasting, take your time.
Yes, really savor the experience.
So swirl the wine, smell.
Yep.
Taste it. Pay attention to all those nuances.
Exactly. And if you're tasting wines from different lieux-dits, see if you can pick up on the subtle differences.
Okay, so it's all about engaging your senses and appreciating the complexity.
Precisely.
Right, let's bring things back to the modern world. How important is that AOC designation for Côte-Rôtie today?
It's still absolutely crucial.
Why is that?
Well, it protects the region's identity and ensures those high-quality standards.
So it's a guarantee of authenticity.
Exactly. And it also plays a key role in marketing and promoting these wines.
So it's about preserving tradition, but also ensuring a future for Côte-Rôtie.
That's a good way to put it.
And we talked about some of the key producers earlier. Can you remind us of a few names to look out for?
Well, we mentioned Marcel Guigal and his iconic single vineyard wines.
La Mouline, La Landon, La Turque.
Exactly. And other top producers include Jamais Jean-Michel Gérin, Stéphane Augier, René Rostaing, and Yves Cuiron.
So those are names to remember.
Definitely, they're all producing exceptional wines that are worth seeking out.
What are some of the trends you're seeing in how people are enjoying Côte-Rôtie wines these days?
Well, there's definitely a growing appreciation for wines with a sense of place and a story behind them.
And Côte-Rôtie has both in spades.
It does, and people are also increasingly interested in sustainability and environmental responsibility.
which is great to see.
It is, and many Côte-Rôtie producers are leading the way in that regard.
So it's a region that's moving with the times.
Absolutely.
What are some of the challenges that Côte-Rôtie faces going forward?
Well, climate change is a big one, as it is for all wine regions.
Those rising temperatures and unpredictable weather patterns.
Exactly. It's a real concern, and there's also the competition from other Syrah-producing regions around the world.
So Côte-Rôtie needs to stay ahead of the curve.
It does, and then there's the issue of production volume. It's a relatively small region.
So there's a limit to how much wine they can produce.
Exactly, which can make it hard to meet the growing global demand.
And you mentioned tourism earlier. How important is that for the future of Côte-Rôtie?
It's hugely important. I mean, the region is stunningly beautiful.
Those terraced vineyards overlooking the Rhone Valley.
It's picture perfect, and the wines are world class, so it has all the ingredients for a top wine tourism destination.
So it's about developing that infrastructure and promoting the region.
Exactly, and also educating people about the history, the culture, the gastronomy of Côte-Rôtie.
So it's about sharing the story of the region with the world.
Precisely.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today. Any final thoughts on what makes Côte-Rôtie so special?
Well, it's a truly unique and irreplaceable region. It's the combination of that distinctive terroir, the mastery of Syrah, and the dedication of the winemakers.
It's a real testament to the power of place.
It is.
And what do you see for the future of winemaking in Côte-Rôtie?
I think it's about finding that balance between respecting tradition and embracing innovation.
So honoring the past while looking to the future.
Exactly, and I think Côte-Rôtie is well positioned to do just that.
Excellent. And for you, our listener, as you continue your own exploration of Côte-Rôtie,
Yeah.
I want you to think about this.
Go on.
Those individual vineyard sites, the lieux-dits, they're more than just geographical locations.
That's an interesting thought.
They represent a living heritage, each one with its own unique story to tell.
I like that.
So maybe your next adventure is to delve deeper into those specific terroirs and discover their individual voices.
It's a journey worth taking.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Côte-Rôtie.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.